Steve Dyer taught himself to play the guitar at the tender age of 11. Jazz Afrika is a Dyertribe music initiative conceived by Bokani and Steve Dyer. Its aim is to stimulate, promote and preserve the African jazz tradition through a variety of projects. A big part of the initiative is preservation of a unique heritage. For more, we are joined by both Steve and Bokani Dyer here in the studio, father and son team. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. Bokani, let's start with you. I mean, your dad is such a, he's such an expert. I mean, he's walking, he's playing. What did you call him?
Smooth.
He's a cool cat.
He's a cool cat. Yeah. He's fresher than me. Look,
Let's talk about this idea of Jazz Afrika, and we talked a little bit about it in the intro about preservation of music. But how did this dialogue start between you and your father, and this as a project was born?
I'd just like to make the distinction. Jazz Afrika is actually a separate project, also conceived by the both of us.
Okay.
So
we're talking about Dyertribe.
Dialogue.
Okay,
Yes.
that's clever actually. Who came up with that one?
Yeah, he coins the phrases,
The cool cat. Okay, let's talk about dialogue. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So that's a collaboration that we put together for some shows at the Orbit. We did our first one last night, and then we're doing another show tonight. Yeah.
Look, I mean, there's two things about you that I've interviewed you separately and I've had a conversation with you separately. I've never had an interview with the both of you. But one thing about you is that you both understand music, you love it, you have a passion for it. When that comes on stage, Steve, what is that like?
Well, we had our first performance last night of this dialogue, and we took a journey through time from when he was born in Botswana in the 1980s until the present day. And even though the program was so diverse, the audience took the journey with us. It was just an amazing experience, I have to say.
But is there a moment like, and the thing for me, that maybe the question that I'm asking is that, when you conceive, you come up with a lot of things, and a lot of things are work. People love your creativity. Where do you draw the line in just how far you can go? Because I can assume if the two of you are holding hands, you can go completely left. And how do you draw each other back and make sure that you're creating something that the audiences respond to and they love and they respond to dialogue?
Well, I think audience and people as a whole, they respond to things that are real. So I think the way we have crafted the show, we've kind of chosen the material that is relevant story-wise to our lives, linked to each other. So we start off the show with Just Before I Was Born, to a song that was composed 3 days after I was born, and going forward and things like this. But I think the audience really got a sense of the true spirit in the music, and so
it's emotional, isn't it? It's emotional as well, isn't it?
Yes, well, look, we are father and son, but there comes a time on stage where there's nothing like that anymore. It's musicians, and so we have to look at each other. Yes, there's the family tie, but there's also the artistic creation. So one doesn't supersede the other. And I think that's very trick.
Important.
And also the people that we're playing with, they really embrace everything.
These guys are like your left hand and your right hand. You guys understand each other. But this is not the only thing dialogue is not the only thing you guys have conceptualized. I was speaking to Bokani before we started the interview. That this is, you've done other things under your brand. Yes,
well, Dyertribe is the business we're in together. And so we're looking at Jazz Afrika now happens, which is a legacy project. But basically we are interested in how do we take the music of this region forward in a creative way. And so that's the whole ethos, I think, behind Dyertribe and what we're doing. So whether we do recordings, whether we do original compositions, whether we pay tribute to the elders, there's so much richness that we just have to give to the world in some way or another.
And I think the fundamental thing is also that you appeal to a certain generation and Steve appeals to a certain generation, and you guys kind of make those generations meet, because generally I think although jazz appeals to doesn't really matter what age you are. But do you find that when you develop this concept and stuff like that, that you also speak to that, or is it the music? We'll play the music, we'll develop the sound, or is it also like, because one of the questions here is like, you know, we're always talking about the life expectancy of jazz and stuff like that, and whether it'll die, but here's a classic example of it not.
Yeah, well, I think the great thing about last night especially is that the program was so varied, because we had some of the compositions that were composed in the 80s and things like this, and then some of my compositions which were composed more recently. So I think the whole program worked together, and it was kept interesting throughout because it had
all of those various
elements. Yeah.
Okay, he's a regular TV presenter. Steve Dyer is here. He's one of the unofficial hosts of Morning Live. And then Bokani Dyer, his son, is with us, sharing the journey, jazz music. It's called Dialogue, and it's currently on at the Orbit. You can catch up more, Google more details. Liberal standing by for more.